Hello friends! Welcome to Daily Sourdough. Today we are going to make flaky sourdough biscuits. So let's get started. I have 2.5 cups of flour. Put that in your bowl. Then take half a cup of butter or 1 cube of butter and cut that into little cubes. You want cold butter. Make sure your butter is cold because when you blend it into the flour, you don't want it to mix up like cookie dough. You want it to be crumbly. So cut these into little squares. Then we'll use our pastry cutter and we'll cut that cold butter into the flour. And you want it to just resemble coarse crumbs. That way you'll still have little pockets of butter when your biscuits are baking. That's what makes it flaky instead of cake-like. So just use your pastry cutter, just work that butter into the flour. And see how it's starting to look kind of crumbly? That's what you're going for. When I first got my starter back in 2014, I thought the only thing I could make was sourdough bread. So I want to teach you all the delicious things you can make with your sourdough starter, because now I use my sourdough starter almost daily. See how this is crumbly? You want little chunks of butter because that will make a flaky biscuit. Next, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. Just mix that up gently. Then we add about a cup of starter, and I don't measure it, I just kind of eyeball it. So just kind of guess, but roughly a cup of starter. And it doesn't matter that much. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then just gently mix that. The last ingredient we're going to mix in today is 1 cup of milk. Now we'll just gently incorporate the milk. We want to mix the milk in thoroughly, but we don't want to make the dough too smooth. We still want those little pockets of butter, so it needs to have just a little bit of a crumbly texture. So as soon as the flour is all incorporated, then stop mixing. And there you have it. That's all we do tonight. So I'm going to cover this up and leave it on my counter to ferment for roughly 16 hours, but you can cook it anytime the next day. You could cook this for breakfast, you could cook this for lunch or dinner. It will just sit on your counter and wait patiently for you. The longer it ferments, the longer those little good bacteria and the natural yeast have to digest the glutens in your flour. So it makes it easier for your little tummy to digest and makes your biscuit all the more tender. So let's cover it up and we'll see you tomorrow. My biscuit dough has been sitting on the counter for about 20 hours, and as you can see, there's still little cubes of butter. So there's still little pieces of butter in the dough. Now we'll scrape it out onto the counter, and we're going to knead in 3/4 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of soda. And I mixed this in a little bowl so that they would be mixed together well. There's nothing so nasty as baking soda and baking powder that's not mixed up. So spread your dough out a little bit. Sprinkle this mixture over your dough. Then we're gonna knead it in. You wanna get it mixed up really thoroughly. A bench scraper is really useful at this point because your dough is sticky and it gets it right off the counter. So just knead it enough to mix in that salt and soda and powder. And you can feel the texture of the dough start to change. It starts to expand pretty quickly. Okay, that's mixed up. Then sprinkle your countertop with some flour because your dough is kind of sticky. And then roll it out to about 1/2 inch thick. You can still see there's chunks of butter in there, and that's gonna make it really flaky. Then cut it. Cut it with your biscuit cutter, or this is an English muffin cutter. And put it on, this is a baking stone, but you can use a cookie sheet. It'll be just as good. And roll the rest out. These are going to rise on your cookie sheet for about 15 minutes while your oven heats up to 400 degrees. Our oven is heated to 400 degrees, so let's put them in. The biscuits will bake for 20 to 30 minutes at 400 degrees. In 20 minutes, so we'll check the biscuits. Perfect. See how high they rise? Aren't they beautiful? So we'll butter the tops of the biscuits and then serve them with honey butter or jam. They go great with stew. You can split them open and put your favorite country gravy on them for biscuits and gravy. You can make sandwiches out of them. Delicious. Well, let's taste one. We open it up, see the layers of the dough, kind of like a croissant. And what makes that is those little cubes of butter that are still left in your dough. That makes a flaky biscuit. Okay. Slather it with butter and a little bit of homemade raspberry jam. This is one of my family's favorites. Mmm, delicious. That flaky biscuit and homemade raspberry jam. Wow. Isn't it fun to make delicious food that your family loves and is healthy too? If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more about how to use your sourdough starter on a daily basis, subscribe. I have more delicious recipes coming soon on Daily Sourdough.